Hi everyone, I'm back from quite a long break and today I'm going to show you how I create these beautiful hand-painted papers that I made these gorgeous paper beads with. So let's jump straight in. Oh yeah, a couple of things before we start. Make sure you stay to the end because there are quite a few steps in this process and I wouldn't want you to miss any of them. And the other thing is, lots of the products that I use in this video will be linked in the description below, and if you click on any of the Amazon ones and buy anything, I do receive a small commission from Amazon. And finally, before we start, there are free printables for you to go with this video, and they are available over on my website, which is linked in the description below. And if anyone wants one of my paper bead strip templates, there'll also be a link to my Etsy shop in the description below as well. Okay, so swiftly on to the tutorial. I use copy paper to make my beads, but I used this one. It's a special one for colour documents. It's 120 GSM, it's quite robust and it has a nice smooth surface. I get mine from Tesco in the UK, but you can also get it on Amazon, and I do have some in my Amazon shop. I'm using alcohol inks in this tutorial, and as you can see, these are very well used because I really love this set. I am using 3 sheets of paper stacked on top of each other, and the reason for that will become clear in a moment. I am also wearing rubber gloves because alcohol ink will stain your fingers and it will stain any work surfaces that it gets on, so make sure you cover those as well. So the goal here is to cover the entire paper with tiny dots of colour, and the smaller the dots the better. Now this is going to end up looking really busy, and at the end of it you might think it doesn't look very good, but it may not look very good as a whole A4 piece of paper, but when you've cut this up into strips, it's going to look fantastic, because what you want is a huge variety of colours in each strip. So if you put large areas of colour on the A4 sheet, by the time you cut them down into 1-inch strips, you're not going to have that much of a spread of colours, if that makes sense. So you need to keep these dots tiny as you can, okay? And here's why I put the pieces of paper on top of each other. The alcohol ink does soak right through the paper, which in itself is brilliant, and I will explain why in a moment. So it soaks through and leaves these tiny dots on the second sheet, and of course you can build on that when you come to do your second sheet. And it's also handy for auditioning colours if you're not sure whether you want to add a certain colour to the sheet that you're working on. So you can put it on a sheet underneath and see what happens. And the reason that it's so brilliant that the alcohol ink soaks right through the paper is when you cut your strips, you don't end up with white edges, because the alcohol ink is soaked all the way through, and so you don't have to spend time with a Sharpie marker colouring the edges of your bead strips. So that is fantastic. And you also don't have to colour the first inch on the inside of the paper bead strips to prevent getting a white core hole. Okay, so you can see I'm going to use the second sheet of paper where the dots have come through to audition this grape colour to see if I want to put it onto the top sheet, and I decided not to because it was very much like the colour that I just put on, so I went ahead and just put it all over the second sheet, which is going to leave dots on the third sheet. Do you see what I mean? I think I did end up putting grape on the top sheet in the end, but not straight away. So you've just got to keep on with your colours until you don't have any more white left, but that's your goal. You need to cover the entire sheet, okay? Now this one is called Alcohol Pearl, and that's Tim Holtz at Ranger again, and the colour is called Tranquility. It's absolutely gorgeous. It really shimmers on the paper. I'm not sure if you can see that on video, but it really does shimmer. You can just see on these patches to the left there Just lovely. You can see it there, look. You can get whole sets of these, and I think I am actually going to get some more colours because this is the only one I have in pearl. These ones are just about done now. I do have a teeny bit of filling in to do where there are some really tiny white patches left. So I'm going to do the rest with some Sharpie markers because obviously they're alcohol ink based. I'm using this gold one to fill in these spaces. You can use any colour of Sharpie, I just thought I might use the metallic. See, that's quite nice with that metallic sheen. Always hard to pick up on camera. I'm just going to do the same thing with some silver Sharpie now. And then I did use a bit of pink on one of them. Because you really don't want any white left. It doesn't look good on the finished beads. You want all colour. So I think we're just about there. I think all of my 3 sheets are covered now. And so I'm going to go on to the next stage, which you might find a bit strange because I'm going to scribble all over them. And I'm going to make them look even more busy than they look already. And you might think it's overkill, but it really isn't. Once you see the finished beads, it all helps to make the beads look unique and really pretty. And you never know what you're going to get. Once you've rolled the beads, you never know what you're going to get until you finish rolling it. So that's the metallic gold again. I think I used the copper one. So I've done all 3. I've scribbled in the metallic gold, or it's either gold or bronze or copper, I can't remember. I think I used gold on one, or gold on 2 of them, and then copper on the middle one. So then you need to take a fine liner pen and do exactly the same. So you're scribbling in a fine black line all over, scribble and loops and just scribble. It's great, I love it. It's nice to do a bit of scribbling. And we're not done yet. So this is a white marker from Liquitex. I had to keep pushing the nib down because you can see the ink wasn't flowing too well. I love this marker. You can use the tip in different ways. The tip looks quite chunky, but you can actually, if you turn it on the side, you can use it. It looks much finer. So that's my final scribbling layer. There you go, Liquitex titanium white, and it's like an acrylic ink or something in there. It's really nice. I use it for loads of different things. So there are my extremely busy paper bead paper designs, and you can see on the back how the alcohol ink has all soaked through completely, which is great. I love that. Really cuts down on the work that you have to do on the strips, because as you know, if you watch me regularly, I always colour the sides of my strips. So I'm now going to draw out the strips, and this is my own template, and I do sell these in my Etsy shop. So I will leave a link to my Etsy shop in the description underneath this video. And there's also a link to my Etsy shop on my website, on the blog post that goes with this video. And these templates, I've designed them in, so there's 8 different bead strip choices on here. There's 4 tapered ones, start off at 1 inch and go down to 1/4 of an inch. And then you've got the same but in straight if you want to make straight beads for tube beads. And you just alternate the strips so they nestle in beside each other, top to tail. I actually did the first one in pencil and then changed to the fine liner pen because it's quite hard to see the lines on something as busy as this. And so you top to tail them to maximise the use of the paper so that you, and in fact I don't use a scrap of the paper. Every single piece of the paper gets used, so I end up with the strips that I've cut. See there how you end up with a sheet full of top to tail 1 inch bead strips? So there is one more step that I'm going to do. You don't have to do this. I prefer this, and I start to fold the paper up because I want to break up the fibres in the paper. I want to break all the fibres up so it's a bit like mumigami, the mumigami technique, but I'm not using any hand cream or oil, which is what people that do mumigami do. They put oil or hand cream on their hands. I don't want to do that. Not for this. And so I start off by folding it in on itself rather than screwing it up because it's too easy to tear the edges when you do this. So I start to break the fibres up by rolling the paper up carefully and then kind of squishing it and squeezing it, and that starts to soften the paper. And then once it's got a bit soft, then I start to kind of fold the sides in a bit more to avoid tearing them. And then once it's kind of softened up a bit, then I start to screw it up. And you can see now at this stage how important it is to make those dots very small and very close to each other. Because if you do big dots, you don't get such an intricate design on there. I'm sure you know what I mean. And you're also beginning to see now that you're only seeing small areas of it. Once you're not looking at the busyness of the entire sheet and you're just looking at small areas, you can see exactly why we need to do it this way. So now I'm going to actually start to scrunch it all up. And what this does, it makes the paper more like fabric. I started to do this many years ago, God, a long time ago now. I started to do it with brown paper, like packing parcel paper. And I used to make some really gorgeous papers for journal covers. And yeah, I love this technique. So what you're after is loads and loads of ridges, tiny ridges, and that will take us on to the next step. See that? It goes like fabric, because if you try to do that with a sheet of paper that hasn't been scrunched up, it's not the same. It goes really floppy and malleable. Once you've scrunched it all up, it's completely different, and I love the feel of this. The texture is absolutely gorgeous, and you do get a very different bead. So what I'm going to do now with this metallic gilding polish, with the sponge that comes with this, what you do is you moisten the gilding polish. You moisten the sponge slightly, and then you put it into the gilding polish, and very lightly, in circular motions or just sweeping motions, very lightly, so you're just picking up the ink or the polish on the ridges. There it is, metallic gilding polish, and there's the sponge that comes in the lid. Okay, so that's what you want to do. You just want to put it on the ridges just to give that a little bit of a shine. It's called Gold Treasure Gilding Polish. I will see if you can still get it on Amazon, and if you can, I'll put it in my shops. So now we need to cut these strips, now that we've finished preparing the paper. Now I cut some of mine with a ruler, a metal ruler and a craft knife on a self-healing cutting mat. To be honest, you're better off using scissors, because I did, where the paper has got ridges on it, if your blade is not as sharp as it should be, it might kind of skid on the wrinkles. And you'll see when I come to roll the first strip, I had got a teeny little tear in the side of the strip. It didn't matter, I mean, the way I rolled it, you couldn't see it, but you really don't want to have to be hassled with little tears like that. So I would recommend, if you do scrunch yours up, see how lovely and floppy and flexible they are, and they feel so soft. But yeah, if you are going to do this, then I would recommend that you cut them with scissors rather than a craft knife. Now these are what I call the skeleton pieces, so don't ever throw anything away. Nothing in paper beading is rubbish. Nothing. These are the bits in between the strips, and they make fantastic spacer beads, which you will see in my bracelets at the end. Okay, so, and now it's time to start rolling. You're going to need something to roll your paper bead strips with. Now this is a paper bead tool that I manufactured myself. I used to sell these in my Etsy shop a couple of years back, but I don't bother anymore because there are so many people out there selling paper bead tools, and to be honest, you can easily make your own. I mean, if you want to know how I made these ones, one of them's a 5mm tool to make large hole beads, and the other one is a 3mm, which is what we're going to use today, 3mm core hole. Yeah, I do have a video. I'll put the link up in the right hand side of the screen if you want to see how to make your own paper beading tool. You just buy these handles. I do give you the, I'll try and pull out the link for the manufacturer from my blog for the post that goes with that particular video, and I'll put it in the description below if I can find it. You just buy the pins. They're called spring pins. They're 3mm and 5mm, and I think they're 4 centimeters long. Spring pins, they're used in engineering. That's what you need. And to be perfectly honest, you don't even really need a handle. It's comfortable to have a handle. It's much more comfortable, particularly if you're not, you know, if you've got any problems with arthritis or rheumatism in your hands. But you can see here, look, I'm rolling this strip. It's not actually a paper bead strip, it's just a, I don't know, something that I picked up. But I'm just showing you how easy it is to roll this just with the spring pin. You don't even need a handle. Anyway, I'll put a link to the video, as I said, up above somewhere, to show you how you can make your own. Right, so assuming you've got something to roll your bead strips with, you need some glue stick. I prefer to use glue stick rather than wet glue because I can't be bothered to wait for it to dry. And see what I mean about the alcohol ink soaking right through the paper? That paper is dyed all the way through, so you don't have to worry about having white sides, because it is quite tedious when you have to colour the sides with Sharpie. But I always do mine if I have white sides. I don't like that white spiral that you get on beads. So yeah, I use Pritt stick, but you can use any solid glue stick. And then you just carefully roll like this with whatever you're using. I mean, I think it's on the video that I'm going to link to, I do tell you how you can actually use knitting needles. I'm sorry if you can hear that noise in the background, that's my printer. It's just suddenly decided to Don't know what it's doing. Be quiet, printer. No one's speaking to you. It just does that sometimes. Maybe it's haunted. See there? That little nick. Did you see that? That nick in the side of the strip? That's because I cut with a knife and it kind of skidded on one of the ridges and tore it a bit. So yeah, scissors. I think my craft knife was blunt. So there's the first bead. They're absolutely beautiful. And I know people are always going on about what do you seal your beads with, what do you varnish your beads with. Personally, I prefer these arty beads. I prefer them oh yeah, okay, before I go on any more, I forgot to tell you, before you roll your strip, cut the corners off at the base, because it gives you a much neater finished bead. You don't get that horrible bit sort of sticking out the ends of the bead if you don't cut those corners off. I'll show you in a second. So there's the second one. I didn't get that strip quite straight when I glued it down, but never mind, it all adds to the organic handmade look. See the difference there with the one on the right has got that ridge sticking up, and the one on the left hasn't. See that? The one on the right? That's because I snipped that off. It just makes the bead, the core hole, look much neater. Okay. So yeah, I'm not a fan of varnishing hand-painted beads now. Lots of people argue that they won't last so long, they're not waterproof, blah blah blah. Well, I don't swim in mine, I don't do the washing up in mine, and I usually only wear my beads sort of special occasions because I really love the arty look. And I think that when you varnish the beads that you make from your own hand-painted papers, I hate the way they look. They look plasticky somehow once you've put varnish on. See, these ones are not varnished that I'm showing you now, and in a moment I'm going to show you these ones that I did varnish, and I used Gilding's diamond glaze, which is fantastic, and you can hear as I move them from hand to hand, they sound like plastic, and I don't like that. I mean, it does make the colours pop when you put varnish on. You can see the difference. The ones in my hand are much brighter, but I prefer the muted arty look. So if you do want to varnish your beads, this is a good one to use. Gilding's diamond glaze, and it's quite milky looking, but it dries up crystal clear. So I just put mine on the end of a kebab stick and twirl it round against a nice soft brush, and then I transfer it to a toothpick and shove it in the side of a piece of oasis. So I'm now going to show you 3 bracelets that I made with some of my beads. This is the one that's got the varnished beads, and yeah, it's fine. Lots of people will probably love that, but I personally don't like the plasticky look. See that? I love that more muted, sort of artisanal look. So the 2 on the right I haven't varnished, and I'm not going to varnish them. You know, and if they end up not, you know, if they don't last long, then I just make more. But all of my unvarnished beads are still going strong. I've got tons and tons of bracelets and things, necklaces, and I don't varnish too many. And I've put these on wire. I much prefer wire because they're easier to wear. You don't have to worry about tying knots or putting clasps on. You just bend the wire around at the ends. Anyway, I hope you found this useful, and I hope you make lots and lots of lovely hand-painted papers. If you want copies of the ones I made, it's not going to be the same. You know, I urge you to go and paint your own so you've got that lovely hand-painted look. But if you want copies of mine, I have put them as free printables. The link is on my my website, the post that goes with this video. So there will be a link on the end screen of this video. I will also put a link to my website in the description below, and you can go over there and get my free printables, plus all the other ones that are over there. Yeah, you're welcome to download them and use them. But anyway, I hope you try this with alcohol inks, and let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know if you try this, and thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. And yes, I will be back with the more stuff from the goodie bag that Terry sent me from Australia. I just thought I'd have a break from that because I wanted to show you how to make your own hand painted papers. Anyway, thanks for watching, take care and see you soon. Bye!